Hello and welcome back to my craft room. I have been doing a bit more work on my little fabric keepsake book that I'm making to keep all the beautiful squares of stitchery that I got in the first two great big little stitchery swaps. I sat out the third one to give myself time to put all the squares I'd already got together, because I had I've got about 60. I'm not even halfway through putting them all in the little books yet, so that's what I've been doing. So I'm going to show you how I'm getting on with that in a minute. I have also been busy this week finishing up the online gallery for the swap number 3, and it's all ready to go now. So I'm recording this the day before it goes live. Oh, I have to keep stopping and starting this video because it's so hot, my brain is addled. I decided not to let the gallery go live until the end of July because the previous swap finished at the end of June, so I just wanted to give plenty of time for everybody's swaps to get there so as not to do any spoilers. I will put a link to that in the description box below, but shall we have a quick peek at it now just so you can see, get an idea. Here's the great big little Stitchery Swap Gallery. You can see I've arranged everything into the countries where they were made. So we've got UK, US, Canada, Australia, Brunei and New Zealand, and it might be surprising to see Brunei there, but Mary from Brunei always makes some beautiful squares and I thought she deserved a little spot to herself. There's only 4 in there at the moment, but there are only 2 in New Zealand. Let's have a look at New Zealand. So if you click on the individual squares, it will open that up. And we've only got Anne, I don't know if that's Ginders or Ginders, is the sole representative of New Zealand at the moment. Let's go back to the home page, or you can just click along the top here to go to the different ones. Here's Mary in Brunei, beautiful squares. We go to Australia, we get a few more in there. I won't go through them slowly because you can enjoy going through these yourself. There's Canada. There's only 3 stitches in Canada at the moment. Here's the US. Does take a little while to load because there are a lot of images in there. There we go, quite a lot more in there. And finally the UK. We've got more in the UK than anywhere else. I think last time it might have been more in the States than anywhere else, but I wouldn't swear to it. There we go. You can see that the optional theme was Windows. There's quite a few Windows themed squares coming up. I'm just going to quickly whiz through here just to give you a flavour of what's here. Beautiful. It's lovely to see them all together, and very inspiring to go through and have a look for ideas as well. Now with some of them, let's find an example. So with some of them, if people have given me a link, so here Sally West, who's also known as Dotty B, has a lovely YouTube channel, and she asked me to put the link. So if people have asked me to add a link to their squares, if you just click on the square, it will go straight to her YouTube channel. It's well worth a look, very inspiring. Sometimes it will be an Etsy shop or an Instagram, but if there's anything there, as you hover over it, not many people ask me to add links this time, but you'll know because, yeah, with that one, look, Daisy's Needles, Lorraine Shergold, as you hover over it, the little hand cursor appears. So you know there's something there. I think this one goes to Lorraine's Instagram. Back up here, I'll leave you to have a good look through that by yourself. I have to say, although they're beautiful, they're lovely squares, it's still a beautiful gallery, but I'm a little bit disappointed at them that there's only about 250 there, and I know there are just so many more. I saw beautiful pictures being posted in the Facebook group and in the Discord community, and I sent out lots and lots of reminders asking people to send me photos of the squares they'd made for inclusion in the gallery. You know, maybe people just didn't want them in the gallery, I don't know, but anyway, there's only so many times I can keep reminding people. So I think with the first swap, I went through by myself and just trawled through Facebook and stuff and found all the squares, but that was an awful lot of work, so I didn't do it this time. The first time I think there were about 600 squares, the second time a few less. This time is only there's less than 250, which is a bit of a shame when there's so many beautiful ones that aren't included. If you or anyone you know made squares for the swap and has photos but hasn't sent them to me, it's not too late. The link tree that's in the description box of this video, if you go there, you'll find the email where you can send photos to me. Just let me know what your name is, what country you're in, or not what your name is, what name you would like displayed in the gallery, and what country you're in, and if you would like any links. there are 3 different galleries, one for each of the swaps so far. So if you made some for the first swap and you only just remembering that you never sent the photos to me, you can still do it, still send them to me. I can still go in and add them in, but just make it clear which gallery they need to go in, first, second or third Stitchery Swap. And please put Stitchery Swap or something like that in the email subject line, you know, just so that I know, so that I don't miss it. Anyway, enough about that. That's not what I've come to do today. I just thought I would mention it because I'm very excited. It might be a smaller gallery than the first 2 times, but it's beautiful and it's very inspiring. And as always, it looks like people had a lot of fun on the swap, and I did feel very left out this time, so I'm very much looking forward to joining in on the 3rd one. So let's go back to what I was going to do today. A few people have asked me about to actually show the stitches that I'm using. I only use very simple basic stitches, but I'm very happy to show them. This is the book from the front. This will be attached to the front cover eventually, but the first little square on the inside will be peeking through an aperture in the cover, and that'll be the sort of inside cover. There we go. And the idea, just very briefly, is that I'm creating a background for each square inspired by the colours, the designs, the stitches and the ideas that person included in the square. I'm so sorry about my neighbour's blinking dog. I find it really distracting. I've got one of those heads that gets easily distracted by noise like that. Anyway, so for each person, for each square, I'm creating a page inspired by the square. You can see that there, hopefully. And for each square, I'm also embroidering the name of the person who made it. You can't see that very well, can you? Let's bring it down a little bit. There we go. That was Annie Grant, that one. I need to give that a blast with the hairdryer. Get rid of the heat erasable pen. These 2 were both made by Paula, these squares. And I won't go into huge detail because I've already looked at these pages on previous videos, and this one is finished since I last did a video. Obviously these edges will all be turned under when this gets joined to the kind of facing pages, so there'll be 2 more squares inside here on another piece of calico. The whole thing will be stitched together. When I get to that point, that will be the first chance I'll have to properly show you how these pages are going to go together, so that will be in the next video. So I took inspiration here from the thread painting that Paula had done. Beautiful work, and she sent me some of the fabric that this bird came from, so I created a little thread painted bird as well. And Paula had used some scraps from the Indian fabric scraps and bazaar packs. So, and there's shears and sequins and these flat backed gems. I sort of echoed that I did a bit of shisha work to give that, and used the sheer fabric to give that same sort of flavour. Sequin there these came out of the bazaar packs actually. My own sort of thread painting there, and some simple leaves. Couched down the branches and just sort of kept going over and over, like making really irregular lumpy kind of couching to give the effect of the branch. And let's see if I can, I've sort of shown this before, but this one's all sort of finished now. I'm going to be getting a lot more practice in with my shisha work because I'll be starting the Millefiori project. I meant to start that last week, but I got so engrossed in finishing up the new Arty Farty Pods website ready for the launch today. I'll tell you a bit about that in a minute, just very briefly. That I didn't do really much else last week, but yeah, essentially that's how this page will look. So then it'll have those other 2 squares that I haven't got here on another piece of calico, and then when we turn again, it's going to be this one. This was made by Magpie Sue Brown, and I love it. I love the colours. I love the way she's pieced it. I love the fabric she's chosen. The combination of colours and patterns is beautiful. Always love these kind of tealy blues and greens together, and then with that pop of the orange and pink, which I also love. It's just beautiful. And I like the frayed edges. Sue's done a lot here of what I really enjoy doing as well, which is taking the pattern that's already in the fabric and stitching into it to kind of accentuate the pattern. She's done lots of seed stitching here, so for the beginners that have been asking about stitches, these little stitches you see going in all different directions, you can do them in a contrasting colour or a colour that is the same colour as the background. It just adds texture and interest to it, and it's just lots of little small straight stitches, all roughly the same size. Doesn't have to be, but that's normally what you do. Sue's used two strands of her stranded embroidery cotton there, I think, and you just do them all in different directions, and she's done it here as well. And here she's done some thread painting. I imagine that is in, there's so much thread, there's so much stitching over the top now that you can't see underneath, but I think this was the flowers that were printed on the fabric. I love this little, I've got one of these that was sent to me by Christine Preston, I believe, so I'm going to stitch that onto this page when it's done as well. She's done some cross stitching here, so these are all the kind of things that I look at, all of these little elements I can kind of, so that I can echo them in the piece I've got. So you can see here I've got the yellow and the greens and blues, but I haven't got my pop of pink yet. I'm going to do her name in pink, and I might add a couple of little pink embellishments. I haven't quite decided yet, but at the moment I really like the look of it like that, and I'll maybe just do the name in pink. So I've already done some work on this. Oh yeah, the other thing that Sue did was using the selvage of the fabric, which is kind of meant to be waste, but it looks so fun. It looks so fun in slow stitch pieces. I just love that. And this was on the selvage of some fabric. It was the same fabric as these. There's also this one and this one. They're all along the selvage of the fabric. So I'd saved this one already, and it was in yellow, so it wasn't very easy to read, so I just went over the letters. And those I did a backstitch and then whipped the backstitch to get that effect. I'll show that in a minute on one of these patterns, and that'll be a bit that, like, anybody who doesn't need to see how you do that could just skip over it if they want. I've also started here, you can see I've done my own little seed stitching here. I've used different colours of threads. Here I've started using 2 strands and then went into thinner, just using 1 strand at a time, just to see what that would look like. And I've done some leaves stitched into the print that was on the fabric. So I'll do one more of them in a minute, just to show you how that's done. I've done more of the seed stitching here, and on this one I've started to go around some of the print that's in the fabric. So I thought these batik prints, which Nancy sent me actually with the swap square that she sent me, beautiful, aren't they? Will lend themselves very well to being stitched into, I think. Just picking up the patterns here and there, either just going over the whole thing like this, or with these very striking motifs. I will probably go over those in a whipped chain stitch, and the little dots I'll do with French knots, stuff like that. So this one I might, because these are quite thick lines, I might do a whipped chain stitch there. So what I'm thinking I'll do is show 3 different ways of kind of following a straight line in the pattern on the fabric, and I'll also show French knots and the way to do these leaves, because they look really fancy, but they're ever so easy to do. I haven't done a perfect job by a long way, but it really doesn't matter. I mean, they're organic shapes and they don't need to be perfect anyway, as far as I'm concerned. And you don't have to do them all. You don't have to like cover everything on a piece of fabric. You can just do a few like I've done there. So I might just do one more. I might do that one, and then I can show you it. Or maybe I'll do this one down here. I'll do this one down here. That'll be nice, easy to show you. So I'm going to do that. 3 bays to do the straight lines, and I'll do the French knots, and that's probably enough for today. Right, I've got myself sorted out. I'm all ready to start. I've threaded my needle with a bright pink, kind of magenta really, embroidery floss. I've got 2 strands of a 6-stranded embroidery floss. I'm just going to tie a little knot in the end to start it off. I know that I'm not going to see the back of this at all, of this page that I'm creating, so I don't need to worry. So I'm just going to leave the knot at the back. I've put it in one of these embroidery hoops, and I put the whole thing in one of these stands which has like a clamp like that. I don't usually use these. Usually when I'm slow stitching, I prefer to just be doing it in my lap in front of the telly, and I don't have anything as fancy as this, but it does make it a little bit easier to make sure you can see it on the camera. However, I can't always see quite what I'm doing because it's about 18 inches away from my eyes at arm's length, so bear with me. So I've just used, because for each of these squares, these pages, I've embroidered the name of the person who made the square for me. So this one says Sue. I've used one of these friction pens. They're heat erasable, so you can erase them. If you're using it on paper, you can just like rub the tip over it and that erases what you've written. But basically it erases because of heat, because of the heat caused by the friction. That's why they're called friction pens. So you can also iron them, blast them with a hairdryer. I've even hung them over a radiator. Any kind of heat like that will erase the marks. So I just hand wrote that. You could be a lot more careful, but I tend to be a bit, slapdash about these things. My plan is that I'm just going to do a straightforward back stitch and then whip the back stitch. And whipping is where you just wrap another thread around the stitch that you've already done. I say a straightforward back stitch. It's not going to be the back stitch that I learnt when I was a kid. It's going to be Christine's back stitch. So that's Christine of Create and Craft with Christine. I'll try and remember to leave a link to her, because she did a whole series of stitches working through the alphabet, and it's really handy. Whether you're a beginner just starting out, or if like me you've been stitching for a while but you've got into the habit of just using the same stitches all the time and you want to increase your expand your repertoire a little bit, I would recommend that. I'll try and remember to link to Christine's playlist. To do the back stitch Christine's way, which I think arguably gives a kind of neater finish, I've come up from behind there. Now I'm going to go down, just take a small stitch to the left in the direction I'm working, leave a little gap, oops, try and make it roughly the same length, try and make it uniform, I come up a little way ahead, and I'm going to go back down at that point. Hopefully you can see it. I can't actually see what I'm doing in front of me. I'm having to look at the screen, so it's a bit weird for me, but I'm hoping you can see that okay. And now with my normal kind of back stitch I'd come up here, but with Christine's way of doing back stitch, you come up here at the end of that stitch we've just made there, go down again. So with my way that I learned to do back stitch, you end up with kind of an overlapping effect on the back, but with Christine's way it looks a bit neater on the back. You just get like what looks like a running stitch on the back, and I just think it kind of makes a neater line as well actually. So there we go. And again, here is where my old way of doing back stitch, I'd have come up here and then gone backwards. With Christine's way you come up, whoops, I can't come up in the right place. I promise this is really easy. You've just got it in front of you and you're not trying to film it for YouTube. So you come up at the end of the stitch you just made there, like that. And then go forward. So if you're watching this and you're used to doing back stitch the way I've always done it, you'll see that this looks really different on the back. So you don't get that kind of constant overlapping line that you get with back stitch. You get like a running stitch. It's not so obvious on this because we're going along and then turning a corner, but yeah. Yeah, and I do think it kind of makes for a neater finish in the end. So I've now started doing doing back stitch this way all the time. That's become my normal way of doing it. So what I'm going to do is work around this whole letter, and then I'll come back and show you how I whip it. And I'm going to whip it in a contrasting colour, a lighter shade of pink, just for a bit of fun. Okay, so I've gone all the way around with that back stitch, however you want to do the back stitch. And now I've threaded my needle with that lighter shade of pink. You can do the same colour and that just kind of thickens the line and adds definition to the line. Or you could do a completely contrasting colour. I could do it in a yellow or something, but I decided I'd just go with this lighter pink. It helps here I find to turn the needle round and use the blunt end instead of the sharp end, just to make sure you don't go into the fabric where you don't want to. And I'm not going to go into the fabric now, I'm just going under the stitches I've already made, and I'm going to come from the same direction every time. So I've come up there just at the end, I'm going under here and then back up and coming, oops, ouch ouch, and then coming back in the same direction again, taking my thread back that way, back in the same direction again. And you can see you get that kind of little almost candy stripe effect, which I think is really pretty. And now I'm going to go around the corner. So sometimes when I want to go around a corner and I want a nice sharp corner, I'll actually take the thread to the back of the fabric like that, come back up again, and I'm going to carry on, whoops, down there. So you just get a bit more of a, you know, just a slightly sharper kind of corner on the letter there. So I'm going to work my way round now and do the whole word in the same way, and then I'll come back and show you how it looks. You can see where I'm going. Hang on. Yeah, look at it. It just gives that cute little candy stripe effect, which I quite like. Right, so I finished going all around the letters, and then I just did a simple straight kind of running stitch in the pale pink. Now I'm going back around with a darker pink, just filling in the gaps really. I'm going slightly to the right hand side of the stitch there, and then slightly to the left hand side of the stitch there. Okay, so that's that bit done. It's a white mess on the back, but don't worry about it, no one's going to see it. Let's just knock that off on the back. Let's do the little leaf thing now by way of a change. Just to sort of explain myself a bit better for people who might be completely beginners, if you're using a stranded embroidery floss like this, you'll see that if you untwizzle it a little bit, there are 6 strands. That's the standard number of strands. Most of the time I use 2 strands, but sometimes for things like this thread painting and stuff, I'll use 1 strand. And sometimes I use all 6 strands, you know, to give a bolder effect. To make one of these leaves, I'm going to follow the shape of the leaf that's printed in the fabric, echoing what Sue's done really. Oop. So I've got my knot at the back, bringing my thread up at the point of the leaf that's printed on the fabric. And I'm just going to go down I've gone about halfway down the leaf actually, and pull that through. And I'm going to come up again, just very slightly to the left of that first stitch, where I first came out. And I'm going back down, slightly under, very, very slightly under where I just went down the first time. And now going back up to the top on the other side, slightly to the right this time, and back down into pretty much the same hole, if anything slightly below it. And I don't know what the proper way to do this is. I made it up as I went along and it seemed to work. Hoping I'm going to be able to zoom in a bit when I edit so you can see this properly. So I'm just going to keep repeating that pattern. So now I'm going up to the right, slightly to the right of where the last stitch came out, and slightly lower, back down. So I'm just gradually working my way down. I'm hoping that's going to kind of make sense. So I'm keep going from the left hand side to the right hand side, just following the outline of the leaf as it's printed on the fabric and going roughly down the centre of the printed leaf as well. Could draw a line in if I wanted to follow, but it's fairly easy to see where you need to go. And you can see now that centre line is starting to appear. I could also outline these leaves with a little whipped backstitch, and I like the way Sue has made the little elements in the print stand out by putting the little seed stitches in between. Sorry, the neighbour's dog is still going on. We've tried talking to them about it, they just don't care. So you can see they're pretty much done now. I'll carry on working all the way down to the end of that leaf. I won't, like I said just now, I won't fill in all the leaves on the pattern on the fabric. I quite like leaving it so that you can see the original fabric as it was. So yeah, I'm going to carry on, finish this one, and then I'm going to come back and start on this piece. Now I'm going to start going around the outline of this leaf, and because this is quite a chunky line, I'm going to do a chain stitch and whip it as well to make it more defined. And I would probably carry this leaf over into the next square, just continue it over. I like overlapping it, like I have. I've covered it up now, but I've done that there as well. What I will try and do is timestamp these videos so we don't need these bits, you can skip over them, and if you do want them you can come back and find them easily. So to do a chain stitch, I've come up from the back again, I'm putting my thread off in the direction I'm heading in, and I actually find I can quite happily do a chain stitch in this direction, or from right to left, or left to right, or up or down. I don't know about anybody else, but I find it quite easy to work in all directions with a chain stitch. So I'm putting the thread off in the direction I'm heading in, and then I'm putting my needle back in extremely close, almost in exactly the same hole that I came out of, and then taking it a little way forward and coming up again over the top of this loop that I've made, so that as I pull the thread through it catches that loop and creates the little chain there. Really hoping I'll be able to close in on this when I edit. So now I'm going back in very, very close, almost going in exactly the same hole, and coming back up again a little way along, about the same length, over the top of that loop to create my second chain. I find it a little bit awkward using these frames, but I can imagine if you kind of get used to using them, they make it a lot easier. You can get consistent kind of tension on the stitches and things. It's quite a handy little thing to have, and it was a very reasonable. I can't remember exactly how much it was now, but it was quite reasonable. So what I'm going to do now is work my way around the outline of the leaf, and then I'll be back. Okay, I've finished chain stitching all around the outline, so now all I'm going to do is the same as I did before. Use the back end of the needle, the blunt end of the needle, the eye end, and just go back and twist the thread around, go underneath every stitch that I've already done from the right to the left, not going through the fabric, just going under the stitch. So I'm wrapping my thread around the stitch I've already made. That's why I'm using the back end of the needle, so that I don't actually go into the fabric or split the thread. Hopefully you can see that centre line where I've done that whipping. You can see it's, even though I've done it in the same colour, it's just kind of firmed up the line a bit and made it more pronounced, if that makes sense. So I will go around and do that all the way around the outline, and then where you can see there's dots on the leaf, Normally I would go around and finish all this outline first, but because I want to just show a few stitches because I promised I would. I'm starting to melt now. So I'm going to do a little French knot where each of these dots printed in the fabric is. So I'm going to come up from underneath again. It's really easy to do a French knot. I'm just going to wrap the thread around a couple of times and then poke my needle back through, just keeping a little bit of tension on this thread. It does make it easier having this frame. And that's just a little knot. It's not sitting quite in the centre of that print. I don't care. If I had it up under my nose instead of at arm's length, I might be able to do a better job, but you know. Let's just do one more. There we go. It just gives it a nice little texture. I'll probably do this in a whip chain stitch as well because that's quite a chunky line. But I might also do some pistil stitches there. I think they're called pistil stitches. I'm going to go with this pale blue this time. I'm just going to come up where you can see that line printed in the fabric. And then where you can see that little dot at the end, I'm going to make a French knot. So instead of making the French knot straight away, I've come up here. I'm going to wrap the thread around. I'm going to do it 3 times to make a nice chunky knot. Go back down where that dot is printed, like that. So here's where I came out. I've got this long line and I'm going to end in a French knot. Let's come up here. So I might bring in some other colours there. You can see all that purple in the background. I might bring in some purple here and do some more of these. So that's another little fun stitch to have a go at. Oh, and then there's one more way of doing a straight line that I was gonna show it here, but I've kind of got this a bit. This is a bit too far to the side, so I'll do it on here, but I might end up unpicking it. I'll just do it to demonstrate the stitch really. So this is a, what do we call it? Split stitch? I can't remember what it's called, but anyway, you'll get the gist. So where you've got if I want to run a line of stitching down here, just an outline, I'll bring the thread up there. I'm going to work left to right now because I'm right-handed, and I'm just going to take a little small stitch along here in the direction I'm working. I'm going to go back halfway along that stitch and I'm going to split the stitch in half. I'm using 2 strands and I'm coming up with, I'm bringing my needle up between the 2 strands and about halfway along the stitch. There we go. And then I'm going to take another little stitch along in the direction I'm working. I've got so many different ends here because I've just left them to finish off in a minute so I can show you these different stitches. So I'm going to go back to halfway along my stitch and I'm splitting it in half again. Can you see that? There we go. Coming up between the 2 strands of thread and halfway back along the stitch, and then I'm going down again. So the finished stitch is a fairly uniform length, and you can see that makes quite a nice neat outline. It's really good to use for the stems of plants and things like that. So that's another one I use quite a lot, and I'll probably use that here because this is quite nice. It gives you quite a nice fine line. I could still whip it if I wanted to. I quite often whip all sorts of stitches because I just think it gives them a bit of definition. That's probably all the stitches I'm going to be using on this. I will come back in a few days to show you how I've got on with that and move on to the next page. There's just one more thing I wanted to mention to you before I go. The new project Before I forget, I'm going to leave a link in the description box to this video to the Arty Farty Pods website. Go and check it out. Let me know what you think. The idea behind it is to celebrate our wonderful community and all the hobbies that brought us together in the first place, and to tell our stories and preserve them for posterity. I launched it, it will be yesterday now by the time you see this video, by the time this video goes out, which was International Friendship Day, but there's no time limit on it at all. I think it's a project that can be, you can do it at your own pace, you can put your own spin on it, it can be adapted to suit whatever you enjoy doing, whatever your circumstances are. So yeah, please go check that out and let me know what you think about it. I'm very excited about it myself, and I cannot wait to get started, as if I don't have enough projects on the go already. But thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope that was useful for the people who've asked about showing some kind of basic stitches. To me, the reason I love slow stitching as opposed to proper embroidery is that it's very forgiving. You can use very simple stitches. I think you can go an awful long way with just rows and rows of straight stitching. So if you haven't had to go at any slow stitching before, don't let it put you off that you don't know lots of stitches, because you really don't need to. Very much suggest going and checking out Christine's channel, and Sarah Humphrey as well. I think she's brilliant. I've been watching her for ages. I will definitely leave links to both of those. Anyway, that's quite enough waffle on from me for today. This Saturday the 3rd of August from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. UK time is going to be our monthly get together, our Arty Farties get together, where we live stream, my son Tom and I live stream from here in my craft room to YouTube, and it's a brilliant way to all get together and connect. You can all join in with a live chat. We have a special guest this time, who is Dawn from Made by Dawn 23 on YouTube. She lives over in Belize, so it'll be really interesting to get to know Dawn a bit better and get a little peek into her world. If you have any questions for Dawn, please do leave them in the comments below, and we'll pass them on, or just join us just join us for the live, and you can pop them into the live chat. Okay, I'm really going now. Thank you ever so much for joining me, and I will see you again really soon. Bye. What a lot of waffle, honestly.